Oh, sorry. And welcome back, everyone, to an Almost Perfect podcast. We are back. It's been a while, and probably for the first time, at least in a long time, Tom and I are not in the same city, nor will we be in the same city, but thanks to technology, we are here together with you. That's Tom. I'm John. Tom, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, and I'm thinking one of the times that we were uh, doing this podcast, I was actually in Wisconsin. I remember
That's
being
right.
at a bookstore,
I remember the
kind of,
bookstore. You
yeah,
kept
kind
cutting
of,
out.
huh? Yeah. Finally, I just stopped. Yeah, and you guys kept what?
And then actually now I'm thinking about it, when I first found out we were moving, I had to come to Del Rio. That was when we had Wade and Jenna on about
Oh, yeah.
and I was in a hotel in Del Rio, but I couldn't tell anybody that yet because we had just met with nothing had been official just yet. We hadn't told the church back home yet or anything. So anyway, yeah. So okay. It's been more than once. I'm sorry. My apologies. Actually, I told Tom I figured out our problem. Matter of fact, I guess I should say that because we may have newer listeners that don't know that we started in Corpus Christi together, but I recently got reappointed, or I got appointed somewhere else in Del Rio, Texas. So I'm at the First United Methodist Church here. But this is still our same Zoom room right here. It's perfect. I
Yeah.
love what you've done with the place, Tom. This is great. But I was telling Tom that I think I figure out an answer to a problem I don't know that we really had. So the way I figured it, we started our podcast uh just about
Oh,
around ish the same time as some other guy started a podcast. I think I don't remember if it's Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember, somewhere right there.
well, there's at least one other,
Yes,
and
yes, at
and
least one. And
and we are very different.
we yes, and the reason why we know about that guy is his podcast, which is widely popular, certainly more popular than ours, but not as soul edifying, Tom. I
Oh
take I
no,
take
no,
I take a
I
blessing
forget
with
what.
that.
Yeah, I forget what he addresses in his
I
podcast.
forgot to.
All I remember is the first time trying to look for our podcast, I come across his, and I'm going, language is a little bit different.
Language is a little different. Yeah,
He's
that's
a
right.
he's a hard R.
His podcast is called Almost Perfect. And when we first started, we didn't have a name, and I went through a bunch of names, and every name I came up with, I would search were there other podcasts, and just about every time there was. And when I thought, "Ooh, almost perfect," I looked it up, and I couldn't find one that said almost perfect like that. So we went with it, and then later come to find out his. And so that's why we've said we're not the almost perfect podcast. We'll let him have that. We are an almost perfect podcast. But then I thought we can go even further, Tom, and make it better. We are an
Cool.
almost perfect Christian podcast. How about that? I mean,
So
doesn't that just
are you gonna is that gonna be in the search engine now that if we put an almost perfect Christian? I
we'll
know.
try that.
Yeah, if you just add an almost perfect podcast, you get us. If you do what I've been doing, because I never added the and, you get him. You know, just
It's
almost
amazing what
perfect.
the article can do, man.
Yeah, yeah. That little thing makes a big difference.
That little thing makes a big difference. That's
Yeah,
right.
boy, I bet you Jesus could make a parable out of that.
If Jesus had a Zoom meeting today and a podcast, he would probably tell a parable about the podcast with different articles in front of it. I'm sure he would. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I'm in Del Rio now, getting acclimated, figuring out where everything is, trying to. Um, I have two services now, Tom. One at 8:30, one at 11. I did two services when we were in Bandera, so that's not, totally foreign to me. But right in between, there's a Sunday school class that now I lead, and so it's service, Sunday school, and service, and boy, that's it's a full Sunday morning by the time I'm done. So it's good. It is good because it's good to kind of do different things and figure out some other things like that. So that's what we've been doing here. It's a nice little place. If you've never been to Del Rio, uh, you don't get here by accident, I don't think, Tom. You
No,
have to
no.
you have to be coming here.
Gonna say, and the interesting thing is, you go through the city where I first pastored, which is Carrizo Springs, in
And
order to get there, and you go to Carrizo Springs, Eagle Pass, Del Rio.
yeah, yeah. Or you can go through Uvalde, and
Okay.
that's coming out of San Antonio area. But anyway, so yeah, just in case you're close, come say hi, and it's good. So it's been a good first what, almost not quite
two
2 weeks, I
weeks.
don't think, but just about
Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, so it's been good. So 2 Sundays. That's typically how we how we call weeks by Sundays. So 2 Sundays. It's been good. They haven't kicked me out yet. So I forgot. I was gonna make that joke like yesterday. We record on Monday. Yesterday was Sunday worship. I was gonna thank them for welcoming me back to preach again, but I forgot to make that joke.
Hmm.
Think I can do it on the third week? Is it just as funny?
I was gonna say, they say three strikes you're out. I'm still here, so
Still got it.
this is the third time. Yeah, thanks for welcoming me back. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'll try to remember. I gotta, man, it's the two services that threw me off, Tom. It threw me off. That's what it was. So,
So I had three services when I came to Corpus Christi, and and they were 8:30, 9:45, 11, and finally I convinced them that middle service is kind of putting a strain on especially the worship team. It was putting a strain on me. I mean, it's just very tiring to basically finish, say, glad you came, glad you're here, glad you're here.
that's right. Yeah. As you're dismissing them, the other ones are already coming in early and sitting down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were your services different?
The 8:30 service was the more traditional service, and eventually, even that we changed because again, it's, you know, we when you have a really good worship leader, but in our case, she has to do traditional, which is not wheelhouse, and then more contemporary, which is, one of them are, at times both of them will suffer simply because it's hard to do two entirely different, being the
Mhm.
same person doing two entirely different styles every week. So I say that I'm not a musician. I never even pick out the music. I just give general direction. This is what I'm preaching about. This is the theme. This is, and I depend on people who actually know what they're doing.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. These services are fairly similar, just about. Maybe a song is different, but certainly the structure and, of course, the message. So, yeah, everything's pretty much the same. It's just different times. So, we'll see.
yeah. When in the other, and it's true for you too, is there is a deadline that it's a hard deadline, meaning you don't go over, 10 or 15 minutes
Mm,
if you've
have
got
to.
to be at the next place. Um, and that's not a terrible thing, especially for those who go, he's over 5 minutes, he's over 3 minutes.
Those people are appreciative. They love it. Come
Yeah.
on. They're doing it for the other folks. We've got to get out of here, y'all. Come on. Well, I thought about that because I've never had a church. This church is on the radio for their second service, and it's a certain, of course, certain time limit. And my first Sunday, I think we were over probably about 15 minutes because it was communion and, just whatever. And so I kind of wondered how that sounds, works. What's the experience like if you're on the radio and, you know, right in the middle of the service, it cuts off, because it's time for the next broadcast. So we'll have to think about that. So, all right. Tom, I have an article that almost seems like it has nothing to do with the church, but I think even in our quick checking in right now, we've already kind of talked about how it kind of could. Um,
Well, it does, yeah.
it
From what
does. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have not read the article. John asked me last night if I was prepared for this morning, if I had the time, and I said yes. And of course, in typical John Fletcher, he sent an article which I didn't even have time to look at until I was rushing around trying to get ready for the 10 o'clock.
To be fair, Tom, you see the article about 4.5 minutes after I do. So it's not like I've been, sitting with this and I decided to send it out. We see it almost around the same time. At least we have
Yeah,
access to it almost around the
access.
same time.
Yeah,
I keep saying I'm gonna work on that. New appointment, new me. I'm gonna work on that, Tom. We're gonna figure that out. So
I will not hold you to that.
all right, so this is from fortune.com. I'm going to read the headline, which will give you a very clear indication of where the article goes. It says the U.S. spent $30 billion to ditch textbooks for laptops and tablets. And the subtitle is the result is the first generation less cognitively capable than their parents. Okay. Now, before somebody could hear this and be like, okay, boomer, yes, things were better, blah, no. So listen to this. All right. I won't read it all, but I'll read the first kind of quarter of it. I think it's helpful. In 2002, Maine became the first state to implement a statewide laptop program to some grade levels. Then Governor Angus King saw the program as a way to put the internet at the fingertips of more children who would be able to immerse themselves in information. Seemingly good goal, right? You want to have access to information for more kids. By that fall, the Maine Learning Technology Initiative had distributed 17,000 Apple laptops to seventh graders across 243 middle schools. And by 2016, those numbers had multiplied to 66,000 laptops and tablets distributed to Maine students. King's initial efforts have been mirrored across the country. In 2024, the U.S. spent more than $30 billion putting laptops and tablets in schools, but more than a quarter century and numerous evolving models of tech. I don't appreciate that. More than a quarter century later? That sounds like a long time ago. Oh my goodness.
for a
But more than
century,
a quarter
25
century?
years. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but it is when you back up 25 years ago, and it was 9/11.
It seems like yesterday. God, and I sound old for saying that. I'm sorry. But more than a quarter century and numerous evolving models of technology. Later, psychologists and learning experts see a different outcome than the one King intended. Rather than empowering the generation with access to more knowledge, the technology had the opposite effect. Earlier this year, in written testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, neuroscientist Jared Cooney Harvath said Gen Z is less cognitively capable than previous generations, despite its unprecedented access to technology. He said Gen Z is the first generation in modern history to score lower on standardized tests than the previous one. Now, they go on to talk about how the tests aren't the only sort of mark of cognitive skills, and scoring well on tests doesn't mean everything, but there are some literacy numbers. There are some other factors that come into this that are indicative that something has changed,
Yeah,
and maybe not for the best for the cognitive ability of our young people. So, Tom, first first response, kind of first thoughts that
Well,
jump out.
you and I were talking. And I said, and I basically said, let's stop here because we need to have this conversation, you know, after we start because we're already into it. But I've been reading one book called the I always say of hurry, the ruthless elimination of hurry. And this is about a 10 to 15-year old book. So it seems like it's an old book. But realistically it's not. And what he's talking, what Comer, Comer, and I don't know his first name, but what he's writing about is that we've shortened our attention span. And he starts with what it used to be prior to the digital age, which was 12 seconds, I think. Um, and he said the that's 3 seconds longer than a goldfish. A goldfish attention span 9 seconds. It's like in 9 seconds, it's all we're starting all over. And he said, but since the digital age, we've shrunk our attention span to 8 seconds. So we do not have the attention span of a goldfish. And he's not talking about Gen Z. He's just talking about because
Just
of the
in general.
general the digital age and our tendency to be on laptops, cell phones, all of this, that we've shortened our attention span. In looking at kind of neuroscience and what happens to the brain, for me personally, I was looking at the effect of pornography on the brain, but this is also true about, say, YouTube learning. Uh, all of us who have been on YouTube will search for the next thing of interest. If it's not very interesting to us in say 8 seconds, what do? We go to the next, and so we go from one thing to the next, and the digital world has created this ability to search for something and you're not even sure. It's kind of like being hungry at night. I don't know what I want. Oh, Burger King just had an article. All of a sudden I crave Burger King. But it's what it's tapping into is our adolescent brain, and as we do that, they've mapped this out. Our brains start to shrink, and is it irreversible? No. Stop that, whatever that activity is, and suddenly we begin to remap and our brains grow. So when you tap into this very issue, I'm going, oh, I've been looking at that basically ever since our last uh, uh, Anna Almost Perfect, now Christian podcast.
Saying all that about the goldfish and attention span, that explains our viewership numbers. I mean, we have great viewership numbers for the first 6 seconds of the podcast. And then after that, it's it's all downhill, brother. So we need more goldfish to watch the podcast. That's
So
what we need.
we could bump it up to 8 seconds,
8 seconds. Yeah, yeah.
9 seconds, 9 seconds.
It says classroom technology usage has ballooned in recent years. A 2021 EdWeek Research Center poll of 846 teachers found 55% said they are spending 1 to 4 hours per day with educational tech. Another quarter reported using the digital tools 5 hours per day. While teachers may be intending for these tools to be strictly educational, students often have different ideas, according to a 2014 study which surveyed and observed 3,000 university students. Students engaged in off-task activities on their computers nearly two-thirds of the time. And it's this tendency to get off track that is a key contributor to the technology hindering the learning. So again, this is not a knock on technology, and I don't think we've ever knocked on it because I mean, I know I use it.
We're using it now.
We're using it right now, exactly. But how we use technology, and then maybe even how we rely on it in ways that maybe aren't helpful. And the reason why I offer this to Tom, I didn't realize he was preparing a presentation for us the past 6 weeks by
Yeah.
reading his book. Um, but I wondered 'cause sometimes the conversations in church leadership circles is the church has fallen behind the times and all those kinds of things, and in a lot of ways that's often true. But maybe this is one of those times when we can look at sort of the regular practices of our shared communal life and see that it is actually a, a benefit and not a hindrance. Whereas, more people are trying to figure out how to incorporate technology into worship spaces, for example, which again, I'm not opposed to, but we have these deeper practices of faith that that we don't have to rely on technology for, that help us maybe stay grounded is the right way to say that. I don't know, maybe it's probably a better way, but that offer us sort of the maybe the alternative to becoming so dependent on technology that we end up losing the benefit we could have from them. Did I say all that clearly,
Well,
Tom? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah. I mean, it's a tool,
It's a
and
tool.
like any tool, it can be misused. You can take a hammer and uh, build something, or you can take a hammer and you know uh, destroy. Get angry and destroy a wall. It's just it's not the tool itself. It's the person behind the tool.
Don't use a tool to break the communion bread. Is that does that fit in well here?
I was gonna say, if you want to go there, yeah, but it really is. It comes down to how you use technology, and also your willingness to recognize that it doesn't make you more spiritual. It doesn't connect you
Mhm.
with God any better, and at times it hinders you from making not only a deeper relationship with God, or have a more faithful walk with Jesus, but it also has a tendency, and we see this. You hear it all over and over again. Family gathers around the table at dinner time, and they're all looking, at their phones to check something or something. There's no communication going on there.
Sure.
I've heard over and over again about how teams are actually together in a room, but they're not talking to one another. They're texting to one another, which is a different type of connection. What it does is it keeps you from looking at another person, seeing another person. You're getting their thoughts, but when you read something, there is no intonation. There's no, you can see a sentence, and is it a question or is it a statement? You don't know, because if you don't have at least the punctuation, you can't even say, um, you know, Youare. And you're here. You are here. I mean, two different responses.
You're here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, or you're here. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
it's completely different.
yeah, completely different. You're right. And so when we talk about these sort of things that I don't know if the goal is the right word to say, but sort of the goal of communion with God and these spiritual practices, like that's the desire, right? My new phone is right behind my microphone. I don't know how much you can hear that, but so
Well,
um,
on that particular one, it was kind of whoa.
yeah. Um, so yeah, the goal, for lack of a better word, is communion with God. And certainly there are ways that technology can help in that pursuit, right? But how do we make sure that technology isn't getting in the way of that pursuit? I'll I'll use, I don't know if
Well,
this totally.
I want to pause just there
Go
because
ahead.
we're using the word technology as if something just recently happened.
No.
And when we say technology, I've used technology for a long time. It's called literature or books.
Well,
The printing
in the
press
example I was going to use,
was technology. Oh, anyway,
well, the example I'm going to use is we've told the church before that when you went into a worship space, sanctuary, we didn't always have pews, right? And so worship it was more active in the sense that you could, you walked around just depending on what was happening. But then our pews came and we got very comfortable sitting down, right? And
yeah,
so even that is kind of, that's a technology in a sense coming into worship, and it has an impact. You might say good impact because I like to sit down for a while. And maybe it is good because it gives you a chance to sit and to stop and to focus. But that's not the only way to have communion with God, right? So, yeah, to your point exactly, it's not just screens in the worship. I remember I was there 3,000 years ago when it was screens in worship were going to, just tear away the sacredness of everything. And they haven't for me, and I don't think for a lot of people. Matter of fact, I've come to know a lot of older people say they appreciate it because before they couldn't really see the print in the bulletin, which was another form of technology, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and
That's
so go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's a simple truth is, from the moment we invented, anything, the wheel, the technology has been moving forward. And when we read the scriptures, it's from the very beginning. We begin, we see in scripture by chapter 3, we see the historical kind of the biblical history unfolding as to how things are developing, and also how it's very, and I don't even know where that comes in. I think it's anyway. Uh, there's this moment where the technology is building technology, and they build this great tower, the Tower of Babel, which wasn't that wasn't a terrible use of technology outside of it was saying we don't need God as much. We want to stay together and see one another and begin to move away from God. And God certainly judged that particular practice.
Yeah. And I guess what I wanted to encourage people who are listening to to sort of reflect on and think about is that, like, again, we talked about how sometimes we feel like church has to catch up with culture. Sometimes that's true. But maybe this is, again, one of those times where we can say, all right, there is something valuable, meaningful in what we do on purpose that maybe we've taken for granted. Um, Maybe we want to hurry up and get in and get out of worship, and we don't even realize how technology kind of helps shape that attitude in some ways. And so learning to take your time of prayer with your church, for example, as a way to sort of have that disconnect from having to rely on anything else other than the communion with the Spirit, communion with the God, and with the other people who are with you. So learning to be in a worship place or other sort of gatherings that incorporate some of this, and sort of begin to see it with a new understanding that there is something happening that's been happening for a long time. This isn't new either, right? And it's not that church has been smarter or is smarter than everybody else, but these are just been practices that we've discovered that shape who we are, even though it takes more than 8 seconds to do it sometimes, right? Prayer and fasting and having communion, Lord's Supper, and all these things, like they shape us, but often we don't see how they shape us until sometime later we kind of look back in our life and think, I'm not the same person anymore, right? And so to your point earlier about we were just so used to everything's got to be immediate, and we try something, it didn't work, we move on. But these practices are meant to be slower in a sense, and sometimes that can be hard for us to accept and recognize. And so that's my encouragement to see what we're doing in as congregations and as people of faith, as these sort of just ancient ways that people have long found to um, slowly let the Spirit build who we are and help reveal that image of God within us, as we like to say. So,
I'm going to ask a question, and based on your answer,
mm-hmm.
then kind of you know basically your answer will determine my suggestion.
Is this like one of those choose your adventure books?
No, but it is Christianity 101 or faith 101, and the question is, um, what is the greatest commandment? Yeah, I mean that's exactly the question that was asked of Jesus. What was his answer?
Right. Love
You
God
know,
with all your heart, soul, and mind.
and there's a second one like it.
Just like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Sure.
Okay, so if you want
What
to
do you
know
think
the
I was going to say, Tom?
I knew what you were going to say.
Oh,
I
okay.
because it wasn't that, but I'm going to say, yeah, it really comes down to when we in use of technology and in worship, in enjoying sports, enjoying your family, enjoying or going to work. You know, the direction of all of life comes down to those two statements: love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And so when we start asking the question about technology, is this moving me uh, toward that? Am I having a greater sense of God's, a greater awareness of God's presence, and am I building community? Am I thanks to technology, I have a better relationship with my good friend, with my wife, with my children. And it really comes down to that. If your answer is actually it gets in the way, then we got to go. Is it worth it to change what I'm doing technologically in order to move toward that? Is it a good thing to have a vital, uh, faithful relationship with God through Jesus Christ? And do I find it beneficial to actually get to know the people around me? You know, my family, my friends, my coworkers.
Hmm.
And if you can answer yes, it moves me toward that, then yes, embrace it. And if your answer is not so much, then you're down to a choice. At least I know the choice. I can either continue to depend on technology for something that was really geared toward relationship with God and with others, or I can really have a relationship with God and with others.
That's helpful. That's very helpful. That's also kind of so here's my last example. Um, Live streaming, right, of worship. That's that's the thing now. Everybody says you got to have a live stream. And I have thought for several years now, wondered if maybe more of us shouldn't be live streaming our worship services. Um, and when I was at Kelsey, we were live streaming before COVID, right? In a very limited way. for a particular audience, and we did that. I did that on purpose. But then after COVID, of course, things changed, and so and now again after COVID, everybody, yeah, technology is great, so we can use this, and we can reach people who wouldn't come otherwise. And I affirm that. I think that's true. People can't come because they're sick or they're shut in. They can tune in. I affirm that that's true as well. But I think a lot about that example, and I've used it before, and people have looked at me like I'm crazy. But um, before, if somebody was a part of the church and they were homebound and they couldn't make it to worship, what would happen was somebody from the church would then go see them during the week and say, let me tell you what happened on Sunday. Here's a bulletin. Here's this, and here's what pastor said, and here's who was there, and here's what we prayed for. And now we're just like, through technology, we put it up on there. Now it's on them to connect. And I feel like in a lot of ways, even if we say live streaming is for to do evangelism, to reach out to people. We say, well, we put it up there, we've done our job, and there's nothing really more we have to do. And I think that's one of those limitations that we have allowed technology to put on our care for one another. If we haven't thought about this, if we just sort of put it up there and leave it alone, I feel like that's one of the limitations we put. So, to your point again, you got to be able to stand back and say, is this helping us do, like right now, technology is getting in my way. That
Yeah,
phone is loud for me. Is this letting us do what we said we want to do? So
yeah.
I'll give you the last word, Tom.
Well, the only thing, as we're talking about this, Miguel Moreno and I went to basically one of the other United Methodist churches starting a men's group, and we were invited to be a part of that. But going and coming back, then we're talking about what we're doing specifically. John Fletcher started a Monday night steak night. Then he left, so now we're having to. But
But I left you with steak. I mean, what more do you need?
and it was delicious. Um, but what he and I were talking about, uh, because it's not just sometimes technology gets in the way. It's also what we do when we're actually together that sometimes gets in the way, because we were talking specifically about loving, that loving your neighbor as yourself. Well, loving your neighbor as yourself is spending time getting to know the person who's in the room. And we get people together in the room. In our case, it's men and their children, sons, daughters, and do we, just because we come together, do we still, are we able to connect beyond just eating a steak and a good meal? And believe me, if you're in Corpus Christi, first Monday, 6 o'clock, you're a man, you're welcome to join us. Bring your own steak. Everything else is provided. But
And it's good.
yeah, and it is good. It is good. We do not hurt for attendance. Um, but our question that we were wrestling with is, okay, here we've got this opportunity. How do we move into that love God and love one another, so that where we are at the time and in that place, we actually connect in both ways, in our relationship with God and in our relationship with one another.
That's a good way to end, because that's what we're trying to do. And if anything is keeping us from doing that, we've got to be willing to change course. So, all right.
Yeah.
Good deal. Tom, you did it again. Good job, brother.
Hey, thanks for throwing out the throwing out the idea, because that's what makes this work.
What else are you reading? Well, I'll follow up on that. I'm reading the comics, so I don't know what we can what we could build on that, but we'll try something.
Yeah.
We'll try something. Excuse me. So,
I am slowly reading through my textbooks for a particular class, and then the one I'm reading that I mentioned, the ruthless elimination of hurry, was recommended by a friend that I know through Whataburger Field, and that's my Sabbath day reading. In other words, Sunday morning and Sunday during the day, I slow down just to think and relate, and
Understood.
it's a game changer for me.
And I didn't even get to talk about, this whole conversation, the notion, the slow church movement, I think ties into this perfectly. Maybe that's something we can build on later. But for now, we'll leave it there. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for using technology the right way by listening to an almost perfect Christian podcast. That could be our little right at the end. So, Tom, thank you for the gift of your time and all that you bring to the conversation. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you probably next week. If not, we'll be around and we'll have some fun. So until then, God be with you. So what's been happening?
Uh,
Usually I ask you that and I already know.